Yes, good evening now. Welcome once again to another new video. This is Santu Sahu and you are watching Sahu's tutorial. And in this YouTube session, I will discuss the poem by William Langland, that is Piers Plowman. Do join quickly. We will be discussing the poem that is from the age of Chaucer. So the medieval poet William Langland's important work, Piers Plowman. Do join. I hope you are all well by the grace of Almighty. So without wasting your time, let's begin the session. So the William Langland actually was born probably near Malvern in Worcestershire. He was the son of a poor freeman, and he wrote the famous work that is called The Vision of Piers the Plowman. It's an allegorical poem. It's an allegorical poem. It is a satire on. So here, Visions of Piers the Plowman is actually an allegorical poem, and it is actually a satire. It is actually a satire on clergy. It's a satire on clergy, and it is also a precursor to. It is also a precursor to that is Protestantism. Okay, precursors to Reformation. This work actually acts as a precursor to Reformation. So it's an allegorical poem, satire on clergy and precursor to Reformation. So here William Langland was born near Malvern Hill. Even the poem, that is Piers Plowman, will begin in that particular setting, Malvern Hill. He wrote only the famous work called The Visions of Piers the Plowman. Here this work actually written in 1370 to 1386, possibly circa in 1377, or Vicio Wilmi di Petro Plowman, that is actually William's Visions of Piers Plowman, is a Middle English allegorical narrative poem. What? It's a Middle English allegorical poem, Middle English allegorical narrative poem by William Langland, and it is also unrhymed. Okay, it is written. It is an unrhymed alliterative verse. Okay, Middle English alliterative, divided into sections called passage, and Latin for step. So it is divided into passage. It's an unrhymed alliterative verse written by William Langland, and this poem has the subtitle called A Vision. So William Langland's poem Piers the Plowman has a subtitle called A Vision. I told earlier that it is a satire on clergy, on this ecclesiastical order, that is the Catholic Church. Okay, against the Catholic Church. It was written in West Midland dialect. Important points to remember that it is written in West Midland dialect. It has three texts. One is A, B, C. So it has A, B, and C. A, B, and C. There exist three distinct versions of the poem, which scholars refer to the A and B and C text. So three versions: A text, B text, and C text. Probably we are familiar with the B text, the summary of the poem. So the poem is actually a mix of theological allegory and social satire. It is concerned with the narrator's or the dreamer's quest for the true Christian life in the context. So here the narrator, who is the narrator? Narrator is actually Will. Will is the narrator. Okay, the dreamer. So narrator's dreamer's quest for true Christian life in the context. So here Will is actually an allegorical character. It's a the journey takes place within a series of dream visions. So this poem is actually full of dream visions. This poem is actually full of dream visions. The dreamer seeks, among other things, the allegorical characters are do well, do better, do best. So these are the important character. These are allegorical character can be found in this work called do well, do better, and do best. Even some allegorical character can be found in, you know, that morality play every man. So this poem is divided into passage, steps, the divisions between which may vary in many versions actually. So even in this poem we find that 7 deadly sins also will appear. 7 deadly sins also will appear, and 7 deadly sins will also try to tempt Piers the Plowman. But Piers the Plowman will deny everything, and he will only choose to do hard work. And he will tell that the hard work is the only key to get the salvation. Hard work will lead salvation. So at the end, he will get the salvation only by doing hard work. So these are allegorical character: do better, do well, do best, and the seven deadly sins also appear in this poem. So I told earlier that Will is the narrator of this poem. Will, here the narrator is the Will. Will searches for Piers falling asleep on Malvern Hills. So this is the setting of the poem, that is the Malvern Hills, where the poet falls asleep. So Will is the narrator. Okay. Now moving to next slide here. Let me zoom it. Okay. Now the prologue is actually the poem. I told that it's a dream allegory in nature and begins with the line. So this is the famous opening line of that poem. That is the voice of him that cried in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord. So this is the famous beginning line of this poem called that is Langland's Piers Plowman, the voice of him that cried in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord. So the prologue actually begins in the Malvern Hills between Worcestershire and Hertfordshire. So this is the setting of the poem, that is the Malvern Hills between Worcestershire and Hertfordshire. A man named Will. So I told that this is the narrator. Will is the narrator of this poem, which can be understood either simply as a personal name or as an allegory for a person's will in the sense of desire or intention. So this is Will actually also an allegorical character that is actually representing a person's will in the sense of desire and intention. So that man, that narrator falls asleep, will fall asleep, and has a vision of a tower, and the tower is representing what? And the tower is representing heaven, whereas the fortress is representing the hell. And within that tower and fortress there is a meadow, there is a deep valley where the human being live. So has a vision of tower set upon a hill and a fortress that is in a deep valley. Between these symbols of heaven and hell is a fair field full of folk representing the world of humankind. A satirical account of different sections of society follows along with the dreamlike fable representing. So it is also a fable where we find that it's a dreamlike fable. You know, fable, in fable there is the moral, there is the moral, and even the characters are being represented as animal. So here the real character, it's a fable representing the king as a cat, and its people as rodents who consider whether to bail the cat, and here Holy Churches visits Will. So here at the first vision he will see that Holy Church will visit Will and explain the Tower of Truth and discusses truth more generally. Okay. So next, this is the first vision. The first vision was actually that he falls as the first vision is actually here that is simply the personal name is allegory for a person's will. Here falls asleep. This is the vision, and has the vision of tower. This is the first vision, and the second vision is actually here. The next vision are those of seven deadly sins also, that allegorically figured seems like this is the second vision, and the third vision and the following visions are like this. Okay, the next vision are this is the second vision, and the following visions are like this. The next vision are those of seven deadly sins that allegorically figured seems like shadows and comparison, and these all came to Piers asking the way to truth, but Piers, in plowing his half-acre land, refuses to leave his work and lead them. So Piers the plowman was actually busy in doing his work. He refused all the temptation, and he wanted to get the salvation by doing hard work. So again, the seven deadly sins that I mentioned are actually pride, luxury, envy, wrath, and avarice, and gluttony and sloth. These are the seven deadly sins who will tempt Piers the plowman, but he will deny all these things. He will not accept. He sets them all to honest toil as the best possible remedy for their vices. So to get the salvation from the vices, or the only thing is to do hard work. So the toil will lead to salvation. So preaches the gospel of work as a preparation for salvation. So hard work will only lead to salvation. Throughout the poem, Piers resembles to John Baptist. So he is being represented as John Baptist preaching to the crowd in wilderness in this chaotic world. In this chaotic world here, John the Baptist He is being represented. Piers is actually represented as John the Baptist. Here, John is actually preaching in this chaotic world, in this world of wilderness. And here, the poem actually grows its dramatic intensity, rising to its highest power in Piers' first triumph over death. Okay, yeah, he triumphs over death actually. And then the poet wakes from his vision with the sound of Easter bells ringing in his ear. Finally, Piers appears as a Jesus. So this is the important point that you need to remember, that Piers the Plowman will appear as Jesus. Piers the Plowman is the part of alternative revival. It is actually this work, Piers the Plowman. You see, this is an alternative work. It is a part of the alternative revival of the 15th century. We have also alternative poem like Pearl, Purity and Patience. We have Pearl, Purity and Patience. We have also other and even Sir Gawain and Green Knight. These are also the alternative poems. So here Langland's Piers the Plowman is the part of alternative revival of the 15th century. It is divided into stanzas called passas, that is steps in station in Latin. Here in passage 5, okay, we have this famous opening, the famous line actually, in whose hand her iniquity is, whose right land is full of gifts. For centuries and literature actually has been busy in pleasing the upper class chiefly, but here in case you see Langland will actually will talk about the common people. He will talk about the common people in Piers the Plowman. The first poem appeared in 1362 in 1800 lines, but after final revision, it reached its final form in 1500 lines in 1377. I told you earlier that it has three versions, A, B, and C. So it has two parts, two distinct parts. The first part is known as Visio, that is Vision of Piers, and the second part is Vita, that is called the second series of visions, Vita, called the Search of Dubel and Dubes. These are allegorical character. So Visio and Vita, these are two parts. First part is the Visio, and the second part is actually Vita. Okay, and here is a character called Lady Mead. Lady Mead, who represents temptation of the riches, but will also woo Piers the Plowman. But Piers the Plowman will not accept. He will deny that the wing of Lady Mead. Here, Piers the Plowman will attain the salvation by working hard. So by doing hard work, he will attain the salvation. So this is the basic story plot line of this Piers the Plowman. It's a famous work. Many a time question have been asked from this Piers the Plowman actually. That's why I thought to make a summary on Piers the Plowman. So we have here John Wycliffe as well. Let's discuss John Wycliffe as well. So John Wycliffe actually was an English scholastic philosopher, theologian, biblical translator, and he was also reformer, priest, seminary professor at the University of Oxford. Wycliffe has been described as what evening star of scholasticism, as the morning star of morning star. You all know that Wycliffe is known as the morning star of Reformation. So along with that, you must know that he is also known as the evening star of scholasticism. He was against the corruption and heresy that he saw in the Catholic Church. Okay, he was against the corruption and heresy that he saw in the Catholic Church. That is the precursor to Protestant Reformation. John Wycliffe is called the morning star of Reformation. The church is actually full of corruption. They're full of decaying morals. Actually, John Wycliffe is called the morning star of Reformation, and he was against the corruption and the heresy that can be found in the within the church. So Wycliffe advocated translation of Bible into the common vernacular language from Vulgate. Okay, so that's why so that every people can understand and cannot depend only church. According to tradition, Wycliffe is said to have completed a translation direct from Vulgate into Middle English. So he translated this work from Vulgate into Middle English, a version now known as Wycliffe's Bible, and Wycliffe's Bible that was completed in the year 1382. While it is probable that he personally translated the Gospels Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Even after the death of John Wycliffe, it was John Purvey who had completed their work. It was John Wycliffe's assistant, John Purvey. The later version was also edited and written by this assistant called John Purvey. So John Wycliffe, was associated with this Lollard movement. In 1377, Wycliffe and Lollard began Reformation. That is, Reformation is actually Reformation within the Church of Catholic Church. Actually, that is actually the precursor to Protestant Reformation. So the church was a seat of power and prestige, was infected with the corruption and the moral decay. The ecclesiastics were corrupt and demoralized. So the church people, the ecclesiastical people, those who are in the authority of church, they are actually corrupted. They were demoralized. So they were ruled in wealth and luxury. Poets like Langland and Gower, they talked about that. They criticized all these things. They revolted against the growing corruption in the church, and they did their best to revive the spiritual Christianity in England as well. So John Wycliffe actually challenged the authority of the Catholic Church. John Wycliffe challenged the authority of the Catholic Church. He sent throughout the country disciples. That's why he sent the country disciples to all over the Europe, who were called Lollards. They were the poor priests, and they were actually preaching. They were spreading teachings that do not depend on Catholic Church. So it is if you want to depend on, just read the Bible. Bible is the only. So he encouraged them to seek their religion in Bible only. So they wanted to preach. They wanted to preach that if you want to know something, please read Bible. Bible was the he encouraged them to seek their religion in Bible only, and for this purpose he translated portions of the New Testament of the Bible from Latin into English. And in 1376 he wrote on civil dominion. Civil dominion is also a work that is by John Wycliffe on civil dominion, published in 1376. So this was all about William Langland's Piers Plowman and John Wycliffe, the Lollard movement and the translation of Bible. Thank you. Please do like the session and share with friends as well.